you need a pretty strong why to be out there running in such a lengthy race in sometimes really horrible, cold, hot, windy, rainy conditions. You never know what's going to get thrown at you.
It was in the middle of the Gobi Desert where an unexpected friend entered ultramarathon runner Dion Leonard's life.
On day 2 of the race, it wasn't the start that I really wanted when this dog decided to befriend me. I was running a race across the desert in China, and this was a 155-mile, 7-day race, carrying all of your food and kit to survive the week as well, when little dog comes out of nowhere, starts running the race, and then decides to join me in the week-long race as well. I look down and I see the dog chewing on my shoes, and she's chewing on a cover that goes over the shoes, and this special cover called a gaiter stops sand from getting in your feet. If the sand gets in there, rubs away, you get blisters. So it's an important piece of kit. Now I'm calling out to everyone, okay, whose dog is this? Someone come and get this dog away from me, because the race is about to start. But as I call out, the gun also goes off to start the race, and all the runners go running down the trail ahead of me, and I'm stuck there with this pesky dog attached to my legs. I'm out there trying to win the race, and I've travelled all the way out to the Gobi Desert to win it. So I'm thinking, I've got to get a good start. Winning's everything, I'm really focused about nothing else except that. So yeah, it was friendship one way. Goby, as soon as she saw me, was in love, but it took me a few more days to realise it from my side. Out of the 101 people that start the race and all of the other volunteers and people around the race, she decided that I was the one for her, and she's running along, sometimes in front of me, sometimes behind me. But as I run into the finish line on day 2, everyone's cheering and clapping and playing some drums, and I think it's all for me. As I cross the finish line, the cheering, the clapping, the drum playing gets louder, so I'm like, oh, what's all the excitement for? And it's not for me, it's for the dog running in behind me. Well, throughout the week, I had to make some sacrifices to help the dog. At one point, I can take the lead of the race, or I go back and help the dog across a water crossing. And it becomes a bit of a sort of life-changing moment, because I'm already through the water crossing and I'm about to take the lead of the race when I hear her barking, yelping and whining behind me. And she knows if she goes in the water, it's rushing so fast that she's going to get washed away, she's going to drown, she's going to die. I make a decision to go back and help the dog across the water, and that's really a life-changing moment, because I could take the lead or I go back and help the dog, and I find myself going back to help the dog. When I pick her up, have her in my arms, carrying her across the water, I look at her and sort of realize, this is pretty incredible, and maybe we were meant to be friends for a little bit longer than I first thought too. I'd had a really difficult, depressive, abusive childhood, so I see a little bit of myself in the dog. I see this dog no one cares about. We don't know where she's come from, what she's doing out there, but she certainly had a pretty tough life herself, and here I was meeting her out in the desert. These two lost souls perhaps were meant to meet out there, and that was a really incredible moment and life-changing moment, not only for the dog but for me as well. So by the time we finished the week-long race, I've fallen in love with her, and I think to myself, I'd like to take the dog home. Now at this point in my life, I live in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I think, oh, the dog can just travel home with me the next day. But of course she can't. She needs to be tested to make sure she doesn't have any diseases like rabies.
The little dog, now named Goby after the desert where she was found, was left with a friend who promised to care for her while she got her medical tests.
The person rings me that's looking after Goby and says, I'm really sorry, your dog Goby's run off. I don't know where she is. I can't look for her, and basically hung up. So she's now missing in a city of over 3 million people. I'm devastated, heartbroken. Think to myself, well, I'm never going to see her again unless I do something about it. I got on the first plane back to China, flew back out to Urumqi and started looking for the dog. And of course, I can't speak Chinese language. I didn't know anyone. But by this stage, a couple of people had reached out to say, hey, we can help you, set up a search and volunteer team.
I've arrived in Urumqi and it's Sunday, day 1 basically of looking for Goby. There's been lots of dogs actually surprisingly looking like her already. None of them are her, unfortunately. So today's day 2 of trying to find Goby, and been out handing these since 6 o'clock this morning, and actually looking around the parks and local areas looking for the dogs, and speaking to a lot of locals who actually think they've seen Goby, but unfortunately it isn't Goby. So day 3, finding Goby's done. No luck today.
A cash reward for Goby's return and media coverage attracted unsavory attention.
We had lots of false sightings, and then we would have people ringing, say, we found the dog, and I'd go around to their house, and of course all they were interested in was the prize money, the reward. People would then start to ring up and say, we know that you do have more money to offer. They were threatening to kidnap me if I didn't pay them some of the money that we had.
Despite setbacks, Leonard was determined to find Goby.
I think a lot of it comes back to me thinking that I saw something in myself in the dog, and I wanted someone to be there for me when I was growing up and to offer support and love and kindness. And, you know, something that I wanted to do for the dog was be that person for her. So when she went missing, I felt very sort of guilty and very sort of worried for her. That made me really want to do whatever I could to do my best to try to find her. And that was really pushing me and really motivating me to go to all of these efforts to look for her in this big city. Time was really ticking, and then the phone rang, and it was a man and his son who'd been walking through a park, and they'd noticed this little dog following them that looked like the dog in all the posters around the city and through the park. So they took the dog home, and they rang and they said, hey, we think we found your dog.
After 10 days in China, weeks after Goby had gone missing, Leonard was reunited with his racing pup.
But she saw me straight away. And as soon as she saw me, she starts barking, yelping and whining. Like she did when I had to go back and pick her up across the water those couple of times. She made the same sort of sound. As soon as she saw me, she was so excited to see me. She comes running towards me, jumps up in my arms, and yeah, I knew straight away that it was Goby. So it was an incredible moment. I mean, I'm in tears. The search and volunteer team that are there are all in tears. Goby, unfortunately, had been hit by a car when she was missing, so she needed an urgent operation on her right leg. Without that, she would lose the leg. So it was important then for me to stay in China for another 4 months to get Goby's leg fixed, operated on, recover. She also didn't have the blood work done for certification to be able to travel internationally. So I had to stay there for a little bit longer than I first thought. But this was a real great opportunity for me to really spend some time with Goby, because I'd only really spent the time with her at the race. So we got to spend the next 4 months in Beijing getting to know each other, getting to fall in love with each other more, and I got to hang out with her and do some fun things like walking on the Great Wall of China and eating lots of tasty Chinese food before finally getting her on the plane and travelling home with her back to Scotland. By the time I get home to Scotland, it had been 6 months pretty much to the day of me and Goby meeting in the desert when she was chewing on my shoes on day 2 to finally getting her home. Goby adjusted to life in Scotland pretty quickly. She had to get used to my cat Lara. That was, of course, probably her biggest challenge. I really do think she's an angel, because she has brought so much joy and light to many people's lives, not just ours, but all around the world as well. So, you know, sharing her story through our book has been incredible to see just how much love there is for Goby as well. She's just a small little chihuahua, and these little paws have gone a long, long way. So, yeah. She's a real little cutie, but it puts it into perspective when you see just how small she is running across the desert. An ultra runner is anyone that runs further than the traditional marathon distance of 26.2 miles. So it could be 50 miles. A lot of the races that I run are 100 miles, sometimes 150 miles. I'm now running races that are over 200 miles non-stop. Sometimes they're over mountains for days and days. Sometimes they're through jungles. I don't particularly like running. It's not my favorite sport. It's not something that I really enjoy going out to do. It just turned out that it was good for me, and turned out that I was good at running as well.
For a person who doesn't like running, Leonard has sure done a lot of it. He says it changed his life, his health, and gave him the opportunity to meet his furry best friend. The journey all started over drinks.
I made a bet with a friend of mine as to who could run the half marathon distance the quickest. It was a drunken bet. So the bet got made about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was kind of ridiculous that I'd even consider racing my friend in this 13.1 mile marathon, because at the time I could hardly run for a bus, let alone 13.1 miles. So everyone that was listening to us make this bet laughed. They said, there's no way you can beat him in this race. And I got a bit angered by it, and I said, well, I bet you I can. And I said, I'll even give you 5 minutes head start as well. So I woke up the next day, forgotten about the bet that I'd made, and then my wife told me what had happened the night before and how ridiculous I'd been. So I thought, I wonder how far I can run. And I got outside, tried to run around the block, couldn't make it around the block. So I had a lot of work to do in the next few months to get ready for the race against him.
There were several reasons why a half marathon seemed out of the question for Leonard.
I was a pack-a-day smoker. I was a heavy drinker. I was overweight, and I'd had a very sort of difficult childhood, and it led to me sort of into my 20s going down the track of becoming overweight through those forms. So I was probably leading myself into an early grave when I realized that I probably needed to lose some weight. It all sort of turned out from this one bet that I'd made with my friend that actually running was really good for me, not only physically, but also mentally as well. I realized that it was a good thing for me to do, and it made sort of my life a lot better as well, having running in it. It's a real sort of life-changing ride of a story, and gives people hope and inspiration for many different reasons. She is the star of the show. Goby's made me a much softer, kinder, better person. And I think going back and helping her across the water in that moment when I could take the lead of the race or go back and help her is the moment that I realized winning isn't everything. And I don't need to prove to people what I can and can't do. And picking her up and having her in my arms, it really was a moment when I felt love for something else rather than a lot of anger and resentment towards life and things that had happened in the past as well. So yeah, she's changed my life probably in more ways than I've changed hers. And it's a case of, did I find her or did she find me in the desert? And whose life has changed the most as well.
Finding Goby opened Leonard's eyes to the reality some animals have to endure.
I've always loved animals, but was never really aware of the plight of stray dogs, animals that need adopting from rescue shelters.
Hey.
Oh, I think adopted dogs and animals are the best. I really do think that they appreciate everything just that little bit more. And I think the bond and connection that you can have with them can be really special.
Leonard is still racing and plans to go back to China, the same place where he found his beloved dog, for a 250-mile ultramarathon. As for Goby, she's become a sideline cheerleader.
Goby retired from long-distance running after that race in the desert. She still loves to go on adventures. She would rather spend time chasing rabbits or groundhog. She loves chasing deer as well. She really likes the cold now, so we've actually spent some time in Colorado. She loves the mountains there. She loves it when it's snowing. Yeah, no more desert days for her, that's for sure.
From a boy with a difficult childhood to a man who conquered his own addictions and health problems with sport comes an unshakable bond between a dog and her runner.
It's pretty incredible just to see where life's taken her as well.
Their lives have completely changed, but there is one thing Dion knows for sure.
I'm very lucky to be able to spend every day with Goby.
I'm TC Newman for Inside Edition Digital.